And welcome to Education at SSBJ online video tutorials. In this video tutorial, now you have to guess on which is the new chapter we are about to start. Now let me give you some introduction. The whole universe is made of some basic substance. Basic substance. Right? These substances cannot be broken further into new substances. Remember, cannot be broken further into new substances. For example, you cannot convert a gold into a copper. And what are these basic substances? These basic substances are elements. But wait a minute. What are elements? An element is a substance that cannot be broken down into any other forms. Any other element is a substance which cannot be broken down into a newer substance. Just like I said, gold into copper. And you know, every element is unique, and that is made up of its own atom. Own atom. For example, hydrogen is unique. It has its own configuration. And also a nitrogen. Both are different. Both have different behaviors. They react differently with oxygen and other substances. Like this. Now there are many such elements in this universe. Particularly on Earth, we are very lucky that we have more number of such basic elements all around us. And then all elements so far discovered are arranged into columns and rows. Depends on their properties, which we are going to study in higher classes. What you see in front of you are those tables and columns, rows, where the names of the elements are written. You must have seen this in pictures or in banners or in around your school. And that table is called periodic table. Right? And each of these basic substances and so-called elements are given symbols. For example, hydrogen is H and magnesium is Mg. So these are all the symbols of these elements. You can now observe all those symbols which are written here. But the question is, how are these classified? What is the principle behind the placement of these blocks? Right? Now these elements which are in front of you are classified or divided into metals, non-metals and metalloids. You must be thinking now, or must have got the clue that which chapter we are going to study. right? What are metals, non-metals and metalloids? Well, we are now in this tutorial with a new chapter of class 8th CBSE materials, particularly metals and non-metals, right? Let me be behind the screen and we'll continue with this chapter. Well, as it is already told that all elements have different properties. Different properties. But wait a minute. What are those properties? Yes, properties. Properties in the sense their colors, right? How hard they are, that is hardness. So these are the properties and many more. Properties are again divided into physical properties and chemical properties. Now again, what are they? What do you mean by physical property and what are chemical properties? By physical property we mean how it appears. So its appearance. For example, a coal appears black, whereas gold yellow and shining. This is what its appearance. Next is texture. And what do you mean by texture? You see, the coal is rough on its surface, whereas gold is smooth and it is colorful. Again, coming to colors. Elements exist in different colors. Odor and melting point. Odor means smell of this element. And what do you mean by melting point? At what temperature an element melts, or a boiling point, or its density. How good it can soluble in different liquids and many more. All this comes under physical properties. Now what are chemical properties? By chemical properties we mean how elements reacts with water. Next, how do they react with acid or oxygen? And many more. All these comes under chemical properties. Now we shall start learning some of the physical properties of metals, right? The first thing is, what will be the state of matter? And what do you mean by state then? By state means we have, see, some substances are in solid form, some are in liquid form, and some are in gases. These are the states of matter, right? And remember, metals are generally solids at room temperature. I repeat, metals are generally solids. Underline it. And again, at room temperature, because most of the metals melt at very high temperature. But at room temperature, they are solids. But wait a minute. There is a metal which is not a solid, and that metal is called mercury. And I know mercury is used in thermometers. and mercury is liquid at room temperature. And mercury is liquid metal at room temperature. And you must have understood now that why we have referred that metals are generally solids at room temperature, because there is an exception of mercury, right? If we say metals are solids, then there is exception. There is one more metal called gallium, and if you hold that gallium in your palm, it melts. Otherwise it is solid. Bit of temperature is raised because our body will be having more temperature, little bit more temperature than the room temperature, and so it starts melting. The next property is luster. And what do you mean by luster? By luster we mean a quality of shining, and you all know gold shines, a silver shines. And why do they shine? Because they reflect light better than other materials, other substances, and the reflections are regular reflections. And when there is a regular reflection, there is a shining. So metals have the quality of reflecting light from their surface and can be polished. Gold shines, silver shines, and copper also shines. And therefore, this property of metal is called luster. Or we can say metals are lustrous. But wait a minute, there is an exception here also. Sodium is a metal, but sodium doesn't shine like a gold or a silver. So sodium is exception. Sodium is a metal which is non-lustrous. And what do you mean by non-lustrous? The one which doesn't shine. And sodium is also not so hard like other metals. So what did we study so far? Physical properties of metals. Metals are generally solids at room temperature, and metals are lustrous. And what do you mean by lustrous? By lustrous we mean shining. Okay, so the state of the metals are generally solids, the first point. Second point, metals are lustrous. Next we'll go for one more property of metal. Metals are malleable. And what do you mean by malleability of metals? By malleability means you can hammer or beat the metals and convert them into sheet. We all know that, right? Metals have the ability to withstand hammering, and can be made into thin sheets. And therefore, metals are described as malleable. So remember this word, malleability. The next property is ductility. And what do you mean by ductility? By ductility means ability to be drawn into wires. For example, 100 gram of silver can be drawn into 200-meter long wires. So ability to be drawn into wires is called ductility. But wait a minute, which is the most ductile metal known? Means which metal can be drawn very well into wires? You all know ductility means drawing out of metal wires, right? Is it silver, or can it be platinum, or the third option is gold or copper? Gold and platinum are the most ductile metal existing on the earth. But gold is slightly more ductile than platinum. And that is why a different kind of ornaments and designs can be made using gold. We shall end this video tutorial here and take up remaining properties in the next video tutorial, right? So remember all these properties, and we'll continue in the next video. Thank you very much.